Well, good morning. I have a whole day booked for myself to be in the garden. There's some things that I need to tidy up. So I don't really know how the day is going to be going either because it's quite thundery looking. There's quite dark clouds there. And but what I'm definitely excited about is because I'm going to do my very first potato harvest today. I'm going to empty one of the Charlotte potato buckets today, and I'm probably going to harvest all the garlic as well and clean the carrots. They're definitely on the agenda today, but also I do have to sow all the seeds today, all the seeds that I mentioned in the last video, and yeah, just to see how much I'll actually get done. But I'm going to take it easy. I'm in no rush, but it's today's day is booked to be in the garden, weather permitting, to do whatever jobs I actually get to do. But sorry, now the sun is actually really in my eyes. I should probably move, but I just want to show you it's been really windy here over the last few days. The biggest storm I think we had sort of overnight, and I just show the destruction it did. Not great, but again, it's just something you can't really do anything about, except in one of the planters. Once I show you how it has broken a courgette plant, I'll put up actually some windbreak. And it's just the silliest thing is that it was something I was thinking about doing as I planted the courgette there, because it's one of the planters that gets hit by the wind basically the quickest. It's just the angle and where it's positioned, and I didn't do it. So there you go. I should have done something I was thinking about, and I was nearly anticipating that if there's going to be any wind damage done, it's probably going to be in that planter, and I didn't do it. But hopefully all is not lost, and I'll still get to do it now and get it up. And actually, just before I go away from this corner, I'm just sitting on the steps into the kitchen garden. I have the fruit tree girdles right next to me. One is behind me and the other one is right next to me. And this one, if I turn myself into the sun again, has a big fennel in it. So in this fruit tree guild, I have the fennel planted, which has grown really tall now by this year, because I usually grow them as annuals, but I left this one in over the winter, and the winter didn't kill it. It was a very mild winter we had, and it's grown at least to like 2 meters tall, which is like 6 foot now, I suppose. It's even taller, as you see, as the small apple tree in it. But the main thing about it is, there's a saying that you sow fennel, you sow trouble, and it just relates to the topic that fennel is one of the allelopathic plants, or it just releases chemical that doesn't allow the plants around it to take up nutrients. So it's a big bully. So last year I did not have any trouble in this planter when the fennel itself was way smaller. It probably only grew to half its height. So let's say, because this is like a raised planter anyway, because we're on a slope and on a hill. There you go. So you see the height there. And this was full of marigold, which it still is, obviously all young seedlings, but they have not really come to flower. It's just the best example I've ever seen, really, for myself anyway. And you see, this is how the calendula would have looked like. It fully in blossom, good tall plants. So I have literally, I have calendula, there's lettuce that's gone into seed, calendula. I have broad beans, which are some of the plants you definitely should not plant near Fennel either. But the broad beans are coming along. There's some Achillea yarrow there, again a bit of calendula, and then I even planted some of the cosmos up there in front of it. And you see more calendula flowering here, a bit of parsley, all is fine. But you can basically actually see the perimeter around it. It definitely hasn't done any harm to the apple tree, right? Apple is full of fruit, and if anything, it actually has supported it from the wind. And if you hear on my background kicking the ball, kicking on the ball, that's because we even last year had a big accident where this football just took literally out a third of the tree here, literally where it looks a little bit empty. There was a good solid branch there, and just the angle the ball hit and all that, it took out a third of that tree. But no, apple tree is absolutely full of fruit, perfect. But as you see on the ground, it has not allowed the rest of the plants around it to take up any of the nutrients. This is obviously not the bulbous fennel. This is a fennel grown for the seeds. And once I have these seeds harvested, I'm going to dig this plant up, and I'm just going to re-sow it again next year. Probably not here. I'm going to let the ground just recover from it a bit, but it's such a good example of how it has not allowed the calendula to do what it can do. And definitely you would have seen, I'll put a clip in of last year's video, how it would have looked like. But this year I'm not going to get any flowers from this very close perimeter. But yeah, so that's how allopathic plant works, and there's more of them. Just do a bit of a research and you'll find out. That's why there's the saying: "So fennel, so fennel, you sow trouble." But love the plant. I don't think there should be any animosity towards it. It's just it's just a great example that if it's a smaller area, don't let it grow so big, because obviously the bigger the plant, the bigger the rootstock, so it's going to affect way more plants around itself. But I definitely don't want to get rid of a fennel in my garden. Now, another thing is that because fennel and dill are closely related, and we have a bit of dill around the garden as well, and we love dill, definitely cucumber and dill, our favourite summer salad with a bit of sour cream, but great in pickles as well. But they can actually cross-pollinate, so it can turn out some funny plants for the next season, so you don't want them too close to each other either. But there you go. Now, storm damage. And for that, we're going into the orchard first. This is a plum tree, and as you see, there's a couple of big branches broken off it. This is handy enough of a branch, but there was a lot of growth on it, as this one up there is way bigger one. There we go, actually it came off. So that needs now a clean cut, and then that can be all chipped up as well. If I just go back a bit, you just see how it's so well sheltered from its behind. The big compost heap is further down. You see more branches in front of it there, because we took them out of this plum tree, and some of the bigger branches got chopped up already as well. But the winds obviously from straight over the hills and the valley came in. So back to the kitchen garden though, because that's where most of the work is going to be done today. So I'm back in the kitchen garden, and I'll show you the further damage in here then by the wind. I would have had the Enviromesh netting over all the carrots here, and that was well ripped off, and the Enviromesh was further down on the planters. But this is the planter that receives the most of, obviously, north-south, so south-west winds, which are our main winds, and that was the corner I thought I should put a wind block on, but I hadn't. And this poor courgette, Black Beauty, our favorite courgette, and you see how many of young immature plants are on it, or fruit are on it, and it's snapped off it. So I have 2 courgettes I could harvest from it. I don't know if it's going to grow. I've never had experience with courgette, the growing top breaking off. So if anybody has, do let me know if it's been successful to actually grow it from the side again, but I'm thinking not. Saying actually that, there is another sort of small looking plant underneath. So unless it's losing its top, has triggered some new shoots to come out. There's a lot of small growth there. So let's wait and see. So what I'm thinking is that I'll do all the tidy ups, cutting backs and sowing before I do the harvesting. So I leave the harvesting at very last, because anything that I am going to harvest is going to be made into tonight's dinner. So I'm going to leave that to be the freshest of harvests you could make a dinner out of. But I'll start from this area. Now, it's an area that I've been probably turning a blind eye to a bit too long, because what I have here is obviously some half-empty planter, and then this looks like a mad forest really. But what it would have been was a selection of raspberries from the summer to autumn fruiting ones. And obviously if you see gaps, something was not right in there. And then this is a jungle. So this is an area, I suppose, which that part I didn't cultivate as well at the time when I built it and when I planted the plants in there. There's a lot of clay, I think, still in the base of it, and raspberries didn't like it. That's what I'd be taking from it anyway, because obviously they failed. So I'm thinking it's the drainage issues, because we are on a very heavy clay indeed in here. As this part, I would have cultivated it a bit better, because I have blueberry bushes in here, so I would have added a lot of ericaceous compost, but probably only about to, like, what's that, 2 feet of a circle in those planting areas where the blueberries would have gone in. And like there, one of them is definitely doing really well. I'm not sure about the variety. I know it's the blue colored blueberry, as then I have pink blueberries in 2 extra positions, and then I have a couple of more blue blueberries just here in the front. But raspberries have crept in here, because and even though I thought I had quite a good division between the 2 planters so that the raspberry runners can't move in, but obviously they did. And already in spring I could see them popping up, but I didn't do much about them. I said, I have time. And now we're early July and I still haven't done it. So I have to do it, because obviously I don't want them to root in here, and they really have started to build themselves around the blueberry bush. Now, so you'll probably see the raspberry planter better from here. So it's only the autumn fruiting that has popped up more runners, but seeing obviously how it's still able to come through and push out new shoots. And then obviously whatever was going on with the soil here, I'm actually going to take all the raspberries out. I'm not going to leave them here at all. I'm going to have to find a new location for them. And then all the extra raspberry seedlings, that's the blueberry bush here. Weeds, plenty of weeds, and I'll be so glad to take them out. Look, even trees growing in here, loads of weeds. As I said, I totally turned a blind eye to this area, and sometimes you just have to do it, so you're not going to feel too overwhelmed by all different jobs at hand. But I'm happy now that once I know this is going to be the job to be done, and I'm not stressed about it. And that's the main thing. one job down, feeling very good about that. And what I found, obviously the first bed here, which I started from the end, there was definitely drainage issues in here, and that's why the plants rotted. I could see there was so much clay still in the ground, which just shows I did not prepare it as well as I thought I did. And I had just a little bit of weed barrier put between the stone and then the bed itself on this side, which is fine because it's all stone underneath anyway, and I'll reuse that. But I think I actually need to dig out this soil altogether and replace it, because I'm thinking if I get really good, nice loamy soil in here, rather than having the raspberries in here, I always have wanted an asparagus bed, so perhaps this could be a good area for asparagus, and then the funds, once they flower, they cover up all this bareness of the slatted wall as well. So that's my thinking, maybe to do that. But otherwise, the one thing that worked in my favour getting out all those roots, because the runners are just everywhere, and the roots, was that the soil was not compacted. So I just literally followed as carefully as possible along the bed where the roots were coming out, and then I would try to get out as many as possible. If I see still any little bit of seedling popping up, I definitely have to remove it straight away. And any of the plants that I took up from the blueberry bed, I have them in the wheelbarrow, and I can actually reuse some of them, because those are perfect plants. I think they are the Autumn Bliss, because the Autumn Bliss was the variety that was in that corner, and they're the ones that seem to have been connected the quickest. And I definitely see red fruit on it, so it's not the yellow variety that was in the middle here. But anything that came out of this bed, I'm going to burn. I'm not going to keep anything, because especially that corner there looked quite sickly, and raspberries do have their own diseases, so I just don't want anything to be carried over to a different area if I'm going to use them. But yeah, definitely, I think some of the smaller seedlings, I'll just pot them up at the moment and leave them for the autumn then. And probably, yeah, I have to prepare this bed then in autumn. Definitely not a summer job, no digging necessary during the summer. But I'll definitely have some new ideas for it. But anything for that, but anything out of this bucket now, the old roots and things that came from here into the bonfire to burn. And there was loads of cutworm that came out of the beds as well, which is just a sign. Obviously, it's an undisturbed soil, and that's where they usually are in. So let's go and make the hens happy with these as well. No, she left you none. One big slug. Oh, Barbara got nothing. And Coco is hiding somewhere, so she didn't get nothing either. Yeah, mouth is full of goo now. Right, Barbara? Yeah, I'm afraid she left you with nothing. There's so many of these corners and areas where I just totally turn a blind eye. It's just my way of coping with the amount of jobs that might be there to do, but I'm just always prioritising and essentially what the time will allow me to do. But this corner, so that's just a little bit beyond obviously the blueberries here, is another corner. I have a round planter here that I've been using because it's not filled or anything, but any kind of spent compost I've had now, I've been just tipping it in here, and I've no idea yet what I'm going to plant in there. Now another few plants I had, which I just checked the roots on them. They are pot bound, but they will be planted this autumn, so I will not repot them. Are a Melanchier, and they are for the cottage garden side. And then I had a cutting taken last autumn, I believe, of Annabelle hydrangea, and that roots were fine as well, so I left it in the pot. And again, I'll try to have this potted also into the cottage garden area this autumn. These are all the rest of the plants that I had in that corner hiding. These I already talked about. They're only for the permaculture because they have edible berries on them. Then I also had some hydrangea cuttings, which are now sort of separated out of the cutting pot into individual pots of hydrangea from my grandmother-in-law's garden just before her property was sold off. I think that was last autumn. I think that's what those were taken. But then I also had cuttings of blackcurrants and red currants. So our favourite red and black currants I had taken cuttings of, and also because the cuttings were like each in the same size of a pot in the corners, a couple of them hadn't made it, but also dividing them up and giving them a chance now to grow all around itself is going to benefit them. And again, they're looking for a new home in our own garden. I'm not giving them away, but I do not know which is which, so I'm desperate for labeling things or not labeling things, but I assume these smaller leaved ones are the red currants. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 of them, and then these should be black currants, I think. So yeah, they have a good smell about them already, but also have a bigger leaf. So hopefully now they'll be happier in their individual pots like that. And then these are the only raspberries I kept. There's 2 plants. Well, one is joint runner of 2 of them, and then one is individual. Just a sort of a nicest size that was there, and I just keeping them. But I won't label it. I think they were the Autumn Bliss because, as I said, they were the closest to that corner, and I assume they're all one family. But it's so good to have these jobs done. So I leave them here for the rest of the summer now. Nice and accessible for watering and whatnot. And this is one area tidied up. Now, how well is the corn doing? It is absolutely amazing. It has a great growth on it, but I also have these Amish pumpkins here, and they are going to the right direction at the moment. And if they don't, if I can see that they're going too far off an area that I could guide them to, I'll actually use these ground staples, which are just landscape staples, or any kind of bent wire really, as long as you can push it far enough down to the soil. And I'm not going to let the metal to go really on top of it. I'm going to leave its little breathing space, but it's just going to be handy for them to stay in the direction that we're happy with. And also what I did, I think it was just only a couple of days ago, I found a packet of an out-of-date dwarf French beans, and I actually pushed them directly straight into the soil here. And we'll see if they germinate. If they do, I will have the 3 sisters set up here with the corn, beans, and a pumpkin all together, because they all benefit each other as well. So we'll see how that gets on. Now this is Crown Prince pumpkin, and obviously, as you see, it has escaped the actual planting area, which is fine because that planting area is not that big anyway. Now I've already put a ground staple here. It's not touching. There's plenty of movement here, but I've also added these couple of big rocks because it's so easy to stumble across them and just easily forgetting that they even were there. But once you see these big rocks and you stub your toe off them, you'll remember. You'll remember to pay attention to it, and especially in this case, there's a little baby pumpkin already coming. So I did that in a couple of places now, a couple of big rocks around the area, so you know there is a plant growing there and you don't step onto it by accident. I had a bumblebee stuck inside here under the netting, so while I came to its rescue, I thought I might as well take out some of these yellow leaves and make the overall look better. Again, once you get rid of all these dying leaves, it would just create a much better airflow inside here. Now, for a couple of years, I've had this eyesore here in the corner. And obviously I could have put it somewhere else, but it was good to keep it here out of the main rain. And this is actually all weeds that I put in there. So let's open them up and just see how it has turned, because I just wanted them to rot down. Because sometimes when I weed areas, a lot of soil comes with them, and then just rather than dumping all that somewhere else, I stack them all into this bag, and it has settled and it's rock hard and it's very heavy. But I'll pop it into the round planter and we'll see how it has turned, or what it has turned into actually, because I'm really interested to see that, and I'll be delighted to get rid of this plastic bag in here. I tore the bag wide open. There's soil in here though. I don't think I'll be able to lift this up though. Oh, I will. Oh my god, that is brilliant. That is just brilliant. I'm really, really happy with this. It's wet, it's actually quite damp still. But yeah, sometimes there's hard clay in here as well. You'd get weeds that are prolific and in their own propagation. So you take off a little piece of it and it will just re-sow itself. So in those weed cases, I actually would prefer to take a little bit of soil with them. And I suppose it must have been too much soil overall. Look at that. That's bigger than that was 75 litre bag, and there was definitely more than 75 in it because I could hardly move that bag. It was so stuffed. Yeah, so I must have thought it was incredibly wasteful for me to just dump that soil, and I just stacked it consistently into that same bag and then left it there. Made sure it was all damp and wet, and there was a couple of sort of water holes in the bottom of it, but otherwise there's no smell from it because obviously I left it under the cover of the roof, as I said. And this is brilliant. This is like free soil. Well, it isn't, because obviously at some stage I had paid for it, but I can't even remember where I was weeding like that. But there we go. So sometimes useful if you have a corner, stick an old compost bag full of weeds into it, especially if you've taken some soil with them, and then just be patient. Now you just saw me cutting away a good chunk of this Nepeta 6 Hills Giant, but you see, ta-da, what it revealed, the whole walkway, it had grown all the ways across it, but the planter is actually all the ways down there. So the first flush of flowers, they're really gone over now anyway. So there's a lot of smaller ones coming from the side shoots. So after the first flush of flowers, it's always good to sort of cut them back by 1/3 or so anyway. But obviously I went much more extreme, but there's still no fear of any of these plants because there'll be plenty of new flowers coming, and it probably by the end of summer or autumn even, it would come again to halfway to this path or so. But it is important to get these kind of jobs done because you do need airflow and aeration around the planting areas, and obviously this whole area here was fully covered up all the way to the end. So also why I wanted to get this done is because of these potting peas, the Kelvedon Wonder. I remember they had started flowering from this end rather than the other end, so I knew there'll be fresh peas probably ready to harvest, and there's plenty of them. So this is something now to bear in mind. By the time I'm finished here, I'm doing the harvesting, to grab a few of these as well, because there's plenty of them there, and obviously there's plenty coming still. The front is so nice and full looking, and there's plenty of more flowers again. It's been such a productive day. I am absolutely delighted. It's starting to drizzle again now. I'm not sure which direction the clouds are going, but it's time I'll get to this exciting stuff. And it's quite late in the evening, so I better get on with my jobs. So I'm just starting to harvest the garlic, and I planted it in December, but the cloves that are coming out, and obviously anything coming out is an absolute bonus, but they're not huge. Some are quite small, and I've seen a few cutworms around the place again. So, but I'll dig them up. We'll see, I have 2 full planters. This one here is Germidor. There's still some scabies actually on them. And then is Topodrome. And obviously I have elephant garlic in here as well. But these are ready now to come out because most of the actual stalks or the leaves themselves are gone yellow. Ooh. Okay. See the other one? Okay, I'll harvest these first because this needs a closer look. Right, so all the garlic went in exactly the same way, that the whole, and then I put a bit of seaweed granules into it. And I've grown elephant garlic before, and I've grown standard, soft neck or hard neck garlics before as well. But the elephant garlic has never grown that big for me. Now, that is big. I'm totally chuffed with this now. Now there's some kind of rot here. I'm not sure where it's coming from. Could be that somebody was just eating it under the soil. Because all the roots are really intact, like that was so tightly inside the ground. And that is all looking really healthy. So let's see if we can get the other one out. Oh, but look at that. That is amazing. Oh, that is just amazing. Like, I would have been happy with just half the size of these cloves. That is amazing. So I'll just harvest up the other planter as well, and I'll clean them up. I won't bore you with those. I'll put the camera on pause for that. And then carrots and potatoes. Potatoes, very important to get those potatoes tested, because that would be our very first bucket of potatoes, a small bucket of Charlotte's. As it's 2 weeks since I cut the shows off it, and it's time to see what kind of harvest we get out of that. Now, the sowing. My sowing plan is still the same as it was in my last video. So it's going to be little bits of sort of just a succession sowing, really, to keep plants going. Get the cabbage, kale, lettuces, a bit of beetroot, a bit more sweet, because sweet also is getting ready. I'm going to harvest at least one sweet today. Chicory, rainbow radish, curly parsley, a little bit of spring onion, and the parsley and spring onion are going to be for the greenhouse here for the winter. I'm not going to be planting them outside. They're going to be physically here for the winter, and just to be harvesting from here. But the rest of it is to be grown outside. So let's get to them. Now with the beetroot, and then I'm going to sow some turnips as well. I'm going to do 3 seeds per cell. I've tried 5 before as well, but I find just the 3s, they sort of grow better and bigger. I suppose because I don't go checking on them so often, so I'm twisting out the ones that maybe are just overcrowding. But I find, yeah, 3 per cell work for me, work for us. Now, new cabbage. No, yeah, not a cabbage. Let's sow some cabbage seeds. Our succession sowing is done, and we're sheltering in the greenhouse now until the rain has passed. You can probably hear it. I'll just show you a couple of clips of the tomatoes, because some of them are really looking well, and the best ones this year are definitely that side tomatoes. So I don't know, is it because of they never got that mad setback from the heat in May or what? But it's the money maker, and the this gorgeous one here, the Irish heritage one, Lucky Leprechaun. So I'll show you them in more of a close-ups. Right, I have to hurry myself along now a little bit because it's late. As I said, the family's looking for food and I've nothing to give them yet. So this is the second early Charlotte and I'm taking the number 1 pot. There's really no difference between them. The amount of grams of potatoes that went into, I'll put them on the screen, and then what the harvest is going to be like. But this is exciting. So I had to actually write them down earlier for myself because I can't remember this stuff. Because once I show you the main crop as well. So the seed potatoes were planted on the 22nd of March and then they stayed in the greenhouse for a little bit. They grew huge, then I brought them outside and then I cut all the shows off for the branches off it on the 21st of June. So they were able to grow for 13 weeks, which is actually quite fine for a second earlies. As I say, the easiest way to remember 3, 4, 5. First earlies 3 months, second earlies 4 months, and the main crop 5 months. So the way in last year's harvest, I was looking at, I did obviously the bigger reveal where I harvested all the sort of tubs at the same time. This year I'm not, because this is a really realistic growing. This is our food, so I'm only doing 1 pot at the time, or 1 of the tubs at the time. So this gives us basically 10 weeks of eating. We don't, well, that's why I'm thinking anyway that we'll eat probably 1 tub a week. And last year they came out at least 10 times the harvest. Now these are absolutely beautiful. They are so clean. There's no scab on them. And that's exactly what I said about last year as well in the harvest of these small pots, especially because they're only like 12 litre pots, 10 litre pots. So that's the old potato. Two potatoes, and as I said, I've taken note obviously how many grams of potato, the seed potato, went into it, and then I can weigh this and see what's the outcome. And obviously, like, doesn't mean what I'm saying we're only going to be eating 1 tub a week. If there's other plans, we maybe want to make more potato salad or whatnot, I can harvest 2 tubs of it, and then once we're through the Charlottes, then we start with the main crop. But I think that's it. No, yeah, that's all of it. I'll probably throw this soil now into that round planter at the end as well, just to top it up. But how nice is that? That is just beautiful. Now I don't know the ratio yet. I'll weigh it afterwards in the house and I'll pop that on the screen for you, what kind of an outcome we got. Now it isn't looking as big as last year. There's 2 little pieces of scab on it, but otherwise it's really, really clean. So if we had a family of 3, so if each person gets, that's perfect. That is a perfect serving. I cannot fault this. And as far as the main crop potatoes go, there is a bit of an update on those as well, because there was definitely blight on them, and I've been moving the shows of those as well. And I'll show you now what kind of difference is in between the different varieties. So just as a little reminder, I would have had the pots originally all lined up in here, in the very front or against the wall, and I had 4 different main crop varieties, and in a case of one variety there's a gap there. So those pots are now under the covers as well, because they were, what was their numbers? They were the 5 and 6. So I literally just left whatever was the healthiest looking, I suppose leaves. I left them on it just in a hope that it will feed the tubers a little bit longer, but otherwise they'll be coming probably off quite quickly as well. And then obviously there's a number 2 pot there as well, which belongs to the group of 4. So the 5 and a 6 were one variety, and that one did the worst. So obviously the foliage was so bad, I had to cut them down so it wouldn't spread any further. The second worst affected was Desiree, which was our family's favourite for last season. Now there's a couple of shows still left on them, and there's still small speckles of the blight on them, and if they get any bit worse, I'm literally monitoring them every day now, they are going to come off. So the worst was Keras Pink, second worst Desiree in the blight. These ones here might come as a surprise to people. 9 and 10 are Sarpomera, which is supposed to be blight resistant. So as foliage, it wasn't as bad as the others, so I left a lot on them, but it has gotten way worse since I cut the others off, and you see the blight, the circles on the leaves there. The way I'm monitoring these lesions is that if they get any bit bigger, the leaves will have to come off. If they're still tiny, then the leaves can photosynthesize and it can still feed the tubers, so they keep growing, because at the moment they've only been in the ground really for 11 weeks, which is very little. So the quickest I'm cutting off the tops, the less feeding to the tubers, the less of a harvest we'll be getting. And then we're coming to the winner. So the leaves have always looked the best on it, and even to the date, like looking at the Sarpomera and then these ones, they have hardly any leaves affected. Now they had a couple of the smaller ones, and even here you see a couple of dots, and again those little bits and pieces I'll be removing, but otherwise the foliage is looking so much better than any of the others. Now it has a bit of the storm damage on them now because they grow quite tall, but this one is something I've never grown before, and that's Aran Victory. So obviously none of it is going to say which potato is going to have the best harvest outcome at the end of the day, but at least doing this kind of exercise and just testing different varieties and seeing how they're reacting to every day. Sorry, just a man came up here, sat next to me. Yeah, with your broken tire. What was I saying? I'm just delighted to do these exercises, and just throughout the years then I suppose breed out the varieties I know that are too difficult to grow for our environment. That's all it will come down to really. And then the taste, yeah, family has to like it. No point growing it otherwise. But so far, so Desiree, Aran Victory and Sarpomera, and Keras Pink is in those first 2 tubs, and Desiree is number 2 tub. And then that's the rest of the Charlottes. So, oh my goodness, this could not have been any more full-on day. And the best part of it is I never actually planned it. I never planned to be that busy. I just thought I have a whole day in the garden. I had no other responsibilities. I tried to do as much as possible on the domestic side yesterday, just to be sure. Today is my day in the garden. And I got so much done. I'm so delighted, but it's so late. But I'm so happy that you've joined me, that you've been with me and you've gardened with me. So thank you so much for that. And I've no potatoes now in the whole harvest area. Sorry, I should move them actually a little bit upwards so you could see them better, because I've handed the potatoes to my husband already. He's already cooking them. It was, as I said, it's late now. So, obviously, very quickly harvested carrots. I only took, I suppose, this much of an area, thinnings. There's way more there, but it could make a quick raw salad, let's say. Took it sweet as well. No, I'm not sure. I don't think actually we're going to be cooking that this evening because it's too late. Actually, could make it into coleslaw as well with the carrot. And then we have the broccoli that gone over and the courgette as well. So that's them. That's your harvest. Yep. Now, then the garlics. I'll let you decide, because obviously all of them sprouted. Which is the winner? This is the topodrome, and this is the germidor. Now, they look quite similar as a bulb sizes. There's an awful lot of garlic there. I haven't counted how many heads are there. I can do that later. I can pop that for you on the screen. But they're quite even. All I'll say is topodrome was much easier to clean. But germidor has the most beautiful purple tone in it. So yeah, jury's out for those yet. But they're beautiful. Nice gloves, and I can see there's plenty of splitting amongst them. This actually has split better. I can see the individual cloves better in them than I do in this one. But it's lovely. And then obviously, I could not be happier about these. They are huge. And I can see the individual gloves in them as well. How beautiful those. Ah. So I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I have, because believe you me, I'm thrilled, and the place got so tidy as well. So a great day all around. But time for dinner. Thanks a million for watching. We'll see you next time. Yeah. Yes. No.